Save the Children is an NGO that exists to protect every child in the world. For the past 100 years since its founding in 1919, the organization has been engaged in a global effort to protect children from all forms of threats, such as war, disease, hunger, disaster, and abuse. In commemoration of the centennial anniversary of Save the Children, we'll meet with Save the Children Korea Board Chair Joon.
In 1953, towards the end of the Korean War, not least because there were a lot of children in Korea suffering from the war.
Yes.
And that's how Save the Children started, and that's how Save the Children came to Korea as well.
In 1978, Joon joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and served as ambassador to Singapore and ambassador to the United Nations. In 2015, he became the first Korean to be elected chair of the UN Economic and Social Council.
About human rights, whether it is about sustainable development, whether it is about maintaining peace and security, that's same wherever you are working, whether you are working for your government or whether you are working for civil society.
Appointed as chair of the Save the Children Korea Board, he is now at the forefront of protecting children and enforcing their rights. On Heart to Heart, we will uncover the work of Chair Joon, a man who is transforming the world to make it a better place for children. The international organization known as Save the Children was founded in 1919 in order to support the many children worldwide who are in need of protection. This year, the organization is celebrating its 100th anniversary. And today on Heart to Heart, we are joined with Joon, chairman of Save the Children Korea. Hello and welcome to the show. 반갑습니다.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I'd like to begin by asking you how you have been since you left the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Well, I have started a new life, sort of, mostly in civil society and academia. Other than chairing the Save the Children Korea, I'm also working with some non-governmental organizations, mostly on disability issues.
Yes.
And then I'm also teaching at graduate schools, including Kyunghee University.
Obviously, you're very, very busy, running on a very busy schedule. In a nutshell, what does Save the Children do? Could you tell us about the organization?
Save the Children is the oldest global non-governmental organization devoted to protecting children in the world. It started in 1919, right after the end of the First World War. A British woman named Eglantine Japp, in 1919, she went out to the streets of London, kind of did a little demonstration that Britain should help children in Germany and Austria, which were their enemy countries during the war, because the children were starving there due to blockade, Allied blockade.
Yes.
Actually, she was arrested for that and fined for that. And the judge who sentenced her guilty gave her money to pay for the fine. And that was the first donation to Save the Children International. And that's how 100 years movement started.
How many member countries are there, and when was Save the Children established here in Korea?
There are 29 member organizations in 29 countries, and all of them are donors, so they are running programs, international programs, all over the world. So there are about 120 countries where Save the Children is running programs.
I see.
In Korea, Save the Children came here in 1953, towards the end of the Korean War, not least because there were a lot of children in Korea suffering from the war.
Yes.
And that's how Save the Children started, and that's how Save the Children came to Korea as well.
As you have just mentioned, there once was a time when Korea was on the receiving end, but Korea has now become an established helper, which I think is quite uncommon, isn't it?
It is. It's just like Korea as a nation.
Yes.
We used to be a recipient of foreign assistance, but now we are a donor. So that is what is called a recipient turned donor.
Yes.
So not only Korea as a nation, but Save the Children Korea is also doing the same thing.
Now let's talk about the scope of activities of Save the Children, the activities the organization is undertaking. Could you tell us about the main areas of focus?
When Eglantine Jeb started Save the Children 100 years ago, a few years after that, she presented what is called World Declaration on the Rights of the Child, which was adopted by the League of Nations and the United Nations later, and which served as foundation for the historic Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1989. So all of these events, all of these declarations on the rights of children have something common, because it has a lot to do with Eglantine Jeb and Save the Children. We are trying to promote children's rights to survive, to be protected, to develop, and to participate. So these four main focuses. So whether it is Save the Children International or Save the Children Korea, we are all working around these four areas.
I see. Now, how is Save the Children assisting in the case of child abuse? This is something that you are concerned about as well and paying attention to.
That's right. Well, child abuses are common in any country,
Yes.
but they are one of the key concerns in developed countries as well. Because in developing countries, you are more concerned about survival of children or protection of children. But in developed countries, even though their children might be free of possibility of, for example, getting starved to death, but still you have a lot of other kinds of problems for children. One of them is, of course, child abuse.
Yes.
Well, there are physical abuses and also verbal abuses in Korea. Save the Children Korea is one of our campaigns this year is 100 hurtful words.
Yes.
So which is featuring 100 cases of possible verbal abuses by adults. So, a lot of times by parents, actually. So we are abusing our children, sometimes without realizing them.
Exactly, yes, which is very sad. We'll get to the 100 hurtful words in just a bit, but I'd like to ask you about the number of children. How many children are actually a year end up receiving support, receiving help? And could you also tell us about this process?
Well, as far as Save the Children Korea is concerned, we are running international programs that support around 3 million children in the world. And in Korea, 200,000 children.
I see. So, when we think of Save the Children, this comes to mind. It's the hat knitting campaign. It's also dubbed Knit One, Save One. So could you tell us about how this campaign was born? How did it come about?
Well, hat knitting started not actually in Korea, but in United Kingdom and United States. But this project became most successful in Korea somehow. Especially in developing countries, when you have a prematurely born baby, not all of them, not all of the hospitals there have incubators, for example. Incubators are very expensive. So when they don't have that kind of medical support, then they go for what is called kangaroo care. Kangaroo care means, newborn baby stays with mother,
Yes.
mostly on her chest for a few weeks. When they are doing that, they need to keep their baby's body warm. And if they wear beanies, the baby's body temperature is raised like 2 degrees, I heard from doctors,
Yes.
which is very helpful for survivor of the prematurely born babies.
Right. So there are, of the many ongoing campaigns celebrating the organization's 100th anniversary, could you tell us about now the 100 Hurtful Words event as well as the Children's Marathon?
Global theme of Save the Children Centennial this year is Stop the War on Children. So even though Korea is free of war these days, free of conflict, but there are a lot of children in the world who are affected by conflict.
Yes.
According to some statistics, 1 out of every 5 children in the world is affected directly or indirectly by conflict. And also, as you said, 100 Hurtful Words is our new campaign. It already started because a lot of times adults, including parents, we abuse our children by what we say without realizing it. So we have featured 100 cases of possible verbal abuses.
I see.
And we asked children to paint how they feel when they hear those words. For example, I will count 3, so you better stop this.
It's like threatening the child.
Yeah, all of them are like threats.
Hurtful words.
We are threatening children without probably intending to do so.
Right,
So that's our problem sometimes.
Oh, wow. So for those of you that are watching, you can find all the information you want on the campaign by just typing its name on the web portal. You can do that very easily. So maybe you can give us a piece of advice. How can parents, I guess, communicate with children without hurting them? Of course, while making sure that their message is sent through, message is delivered to their children. What can we do?
Well, Save the Children is advocating what is called positive discipline parenting. So you can take this positive discipline approach in everyday parenting. A lot of times we pay attention when they are not behaving themselves. But instead of doing that, we might as well pay attention to what they are doing good, doing well.
I see.
And always point them out, when they are doing well. That's one of the positive discipline techniques.
Thank you for the great tip. Okay, well, let's take a look at the many events for the 100th anniversary of Save the Children. We'll be right back after this. Save the Children is the oldest NGO in the world. In commemoration of the centennial anniversary, Save the Children is carrying out significant events, including an exhibition and a marathon. Chair Joon is at the center of various activities. He is committed to the work of child relief based on his extensive diplomatic experiences and UN activities. How did you get involved with Save the Children?
Well, today I think I'm afraid I sound like I'm an expert on children's rights, which is not the case. As you know, I was a diplomat for many years.
Yes.
But when I was a diplomat, when I was a UN ambassador, for example, I dealt with a lot of human rights issues. But after retirement, as a diplomat, I started working with civil society, and while doing so, I was recommended or invited by Save the Children Korea to work with them. I thought about it, and I realized that when I was a UN ambassador, I actually saw a lot of representatives from Save the Children in action.
I see.
They are a very vocal organization. I think Save the Children is one of the top 3 NGOs in the world that is known for its advocacy. Considering the start of Save the Children 100 years ago, it's not surprising. And I'm trying to, contribute what I can to the whole movement.
What might be some of the most memorable events you witnessed since you joined the organization?
I cannot think of them in terms of events, but I should say that the realization I had that even if Korea is no longer a developing country, even if we do not have problems of children starving and stunting,
Yes.
but that does not mean that we are free of children's problems. There are different kinds of problems. So whatever the stage of your development, your society always have problems with children. And that's very important for the society as a whole,
Yes.
because children represent the future of any society. So if you are not dealing with your own children's issues properly now, then you will be paid in 20, 30 years.
How are these children being helped, the children overseas that are in need of protection or even refugees?
Eglantine Jepp, the founder of Save the Children, said was that children that are hungry should be fed. Children that are sick should be nursed.
Yes.
So that's still true, and there are a lot of children in the world who need that kind of relief, that kind of assistance. So we are providing them with relief. But also, what is important is education. For example, if someone is a child in the refugee camp, he or she probably is not getting proper education. And education cannot be postponed, cannot be put off. You have a window for education. So even if these children are in the refugee camp, someone have to come up there and give them proper education. Otherwise, they will just lose the window and they will not be able to make up for it in their future life.
Now, I'd like to shift our focus to how this year you were elected as chairman of Save the Children International. Could you tell us about the circumstances of the election, how you were elected?
Well, actually, board member of Save the Children International.
Board member of,
Well, Save the Children International board is governing the whole movement, which is composed of 29 member organizations and running programs in 120 countries, roughly in the amount of $2.2 billion US. So this is a huge operation. So this 14-member board is, making important decisions on how we will run our programs, how we'll, reform our governance, how we'll, take new approaches in accordance with what is happening in the United Nations, what is happening in the international community.
I understand that you're also very interested in North Korea. So could you tell us how Save the Children is actually helping North Korea as well?
We, Save the Children Korea, ran a relief program for North Korean children roughly in the amount of $8 million until 2 years ago. Actually, we did it through Save the Children International.
I see.
Humanitarian activities in North Korea have been kind of hurdled by international sanctions imposed on North Korea, not because the sanctions themselves are prohibiting humanitarian activities. Actually, they are allowing them, but because of a lot of problems and inconveniences in running programs in North Korea. For example, you cannot send money to North Korea through banks.
Right.
Many of us have temporarily suspended our activities in North Korea about 1.5 years ago. So we hope that we will be able to resume them in due course.
Yes. Now, since we're on the topic of North Korea, you addressed, this was when you were UN ambassador, you addressed the UN Security Council adopting a resolution on North Korea's nuclear missile provocations. So what prompted you to give or make this speech?
That was when North Korea, test-fired missile and conducted nuclear bomb test. They are no longer doing that these days, but so every time they did it, we were sitting in the Security Council at that time. So we met and we adopted new resolution to strengthen the sanctions. So that's how I made that statement in the Security Council.
And we do have some footage of your statement, as you have just mentioned. So could you please fill us in as we watch together?
Finally, as a fellow Korean, I would like to say a few words to appeal to those who are ruling North Korea. I would say in Korean, 이제 그만하세요, or please stop it now. I would ask them, why do you need these weapons? In South Korea, we don't have a nuclear bomb. As we are bordering with each other, you don't need an intercontinental missile if you are aiming us. Why do you need these weapons? Open your eyes, look out at what is happening in the world. Give up the nukes, join the rest of us in the world, and we all can live together in safety and peace. Thank you, Mr. President.
Now, that was obviously given in English.
Yeah.
Most of it, except for one part where you say 이제 그만하세요, which was in Korean, which means please stop. Stop now. Was that for emphasis? Please do tell us about the reason behind you saying 이제 그만하세요 in Korean, and perhaps why only that part in Korean.
Actually, you are not supposed to use any other languages than 6 official languages in the UN. So Korean is obviously not one of the 6 official languages.
Yes.
So I was not supposed to use Korean. So that's why I translated to English immediately. But I wanted to say that part in Korean because I really felt that it is good. It is absolutely necessary, not only for South Korea, but also for North Korea and for the whole world, that North Korea stops provocations. North Korea has now stopped provocation, so they are talking with the United States. They are talking with South Korea. I don't know if they heard me, but anyway, at that time, provocations were going on, and what was most important at that stage was for North Korea to stop the provocations. That's why I said in Korean, so that they can understand our common language.
Now, with Children's Day and the many ongoing events celebrating, Save the Children, the organization's 100th anniversary, May looks like a very, very busy month. For you and for all of us here in Korea. Do you have a message for our viewers that are watching around the globe?
Well, these days in Korea, I think we are in a period of transition. Transition from, for example, economically, from a developing country to a developed country. And we are now full democracy. We used to have a dictatorship. And when you are making this kind of transition, we usually have what is called growing pains. So some of the phenomena we witness these days, I think represent our growing pains. And we are getting more and more mature, fortunately. If I see things from the perspective of Save the Children, even though our economy might be slowing down, the individuals' donations for charity are not decreasing, you know. That's one of the amazing things, you know.
Yes.
People, even though their life is hard, they feel that they should share with others, they should help others, which is a sign of us moving upward, I guess.
I guess, yes, people, do want to help. Maybe those that aren't helping, or maybe I shouldn't say aren't helping, some may not know how to help. They just don't know where to go, how to help. But perhaps, as you've mentioned, there are, many people around us that are actually helping out, whether it be little help or lots of help. I'd like to thank you very much for your time today. 감사합니다.
감사합니다.